Okay, we're back in Senate institutions. Today's Friday, April 17th, and now we are going to do a markup of H 952, which is the capital bill. And we're also going to look at a few specific projects where we have asked for additional information. So,
Perfect. So afternoon, everyone. John Gray, Office of Legislative Counsel. I'll let Scott introduce himself.
Scott Moore, Joint Fiscal Office.
So I'm going to screen share with you guys. This is the first draft of this committee's proposed set of amendments to H 952, the capital bill. You will note that this is not in the form of a strike all, which I think you're often accustomed to seeing that. This is just providing specific instances of amendment to the underlying capital bill from last year, to the proposal that came over from the House. So it's going to be shorter than the full capital bill. It's just going to include the sections that needed addressing to include the directions that I received. And I've called out in the draft the differences against the House proposal in yellow highlight, and then green highlight is reflective of areas that may be fine, but which I understood may have further direction coming. And of course, anything could have further direction coming. These are just the ones where I heard some interest.
so just so you know, the paper copy is black and white. So
Okay, it'll be on
just
the
mention that. Oh, good. It'll be
on the screen.
Yeah.
You'll be
perfect.
okay. I will also say exactly what I meant as we get into the language, so it'll be clear. So again, the form that you're going to see here is instances of amendment rather than a full strike all. If the set of directions that I've received was really extensive, I would have just done strike all. But because it is fairly limited in the sections that it touches, this is a nice way to do it that reduces page counts and also makes clear where the actual differences are between the House and Senate, which of course matters for purposes of the Conference Committee. So section 2, this is amending the underlying Act 33, section 2, this is your BGS section of the bill. What you first see in FY27 is a reduction in the major maintenance line of $125,000. So major maintenance has been reduced by 125 bonded dollars FY27. So what this does is it frees up that 125K for additional bonding in different line items throughout the bonded sections of the bill. On page 2, you see one of the first places which that 125,000 is redirected to, and that's for subdivision 12, the Montpelier Steakhouse entryway upgrades, design docks, parking plan and delivery truck access, and now an expanded purpose and second floor fire escape design, adding the 25,000 of that 125K you took from major maintenance to that line, leaving 100K bonded dollars yet to be assigned elsewhere in the draft, which we'll come to. But the two things to note here, you bumped up that line item by 25K, so it's now 1.325 million. And you said that one of the additional purposes for these upgrades is the second floor fire escape design for the State House. And of course, that leads to flow-through changes in the aggregate totals for the sections. The second instance of amendment adds a new section to the underlying bill as received from the House. It doesn't add anything to the underlying Act 33 capital bill, right? It's just saying, for purposes of this amendment to the capital bill, this section is added. And so the reason it needed to be added is that the House version didn't touch any of the capital bill appropriations in section 9 from last year. So there's no reason for it to be present. So you've added that in now. And for this particular purpose, I noted that 100K was left over in bonded dollars FY27 from the major maintenance line. And now you see that total 100K is appropriated in FY27 to the Agency of Natural Resources for technical support to municipalities to design and implement stormwater utilities. That, of course, results in a bump to the aggregate total again of 100K for this section. So that ties out the 125K redirection that you saw in section 2, and it's redistributed across both the State House entryway upgrade for that second floor fire escape design and for this A&R technical assistance to communities for stormwater utilities. The third instance of amendment is a larger section. This is amending the House's proposal as to what to do with the cash sections of the bill. which you'll recall in the underlying act from last year are in section 19. You'll see the changes in highlight. So on page 4, you have a new line item. And just to call out why I stuck this in the middle of the list, so just adding it to the end of the list. Typically the presentation of the cash sections is less trackable in some ways than the way the appropriations are set out in the bonded sections that are divided up by entity rate. But if you look at the cash section, what you'll see is that the line items are intended to follow essentially the same section ordering that occurs in the bonded sections. So that's why this was added as a new line item, subdivision 3. And what you see here is the addition of $1 million to BGS for statewide 3-acre parcel stormwater compliance. I think this brings this closer, if I'm remembering correctly, I'm sure Scott can correct me if I don't, closer to the GovRec on this piece, if I remember. And we haven't yet obviously gotten to the point where we freed up cash for this purpose. So just to spoil that, you'll recall that the House version contained a $3 million appropriation for a Wi-Fi installation. That has been reduced down to 1 million, so that frees up 2 million. And $1 million of that is dedicated here, right, to this statewide 3-acre parcels from water compliance. The next piece that we come to on page 5, subdivision 9, to BGS for HS for door control upgrades at correctional facilities. If I recall correctly, the House proposal had $700K cash for this, and you have added 1.25 million. It doesn't really matter where the bucket of funds comes from, but because I just said that you took 2 million from the Wi-Fi, applied 1 million to the line item above, you have added 1.25 million to this, right? It was at 700K, brought it up to 1.95 million. So 1 million goes here. Where does that other 250K come from? Yesterday, there had been discussions about, I think 750K is pulled from the replacement of women's facilities. And so 250K of that redirection was put here. Totaling 1.95 million. So big moves to the door control upgrades. The other piece you're going to see here, subdivisions 12 and 13. These are both to ACCD, Division for Historic Preservation, 250K to each of the Historic Preservation Grant Program and the Historic Farms Preservation Grant Program. Those would be 500K of that 750 that you pulled from the replacement limits facility.
So that's the delta, not the. That's the additional. Right, but that's the only cash. That's why we're just saying 250,000 instead of the 300,000 plus the 250.
Right.
This is just the change.
Right, there was already 300,000 in bonding. And since that's not changing from the bill from the House, there's no need for there to be words to say that it's still $300,000.
Right.
It's just adding the 215.
Okay.
Yeah, we are just in the cash section.
Yeah.
So you're not going to see the comparable line items in the bonded sections for these purposes. Those continue to exist. Yep.
Okay.
Next piece you're going to see is what we've already spoken about. Bottom of page 6, subdivision 22.
Let me just to be clear, because this is a different way of looking at things. So not all of the items on the spreadsheet are listed here.
Correct.
So are the items only so is this a list of just what the House changed from the governor rec and what we are proposing to change?
So the way to think about it is that the House proposal, you can see the full scope of all the sections in the House proposal.
Right.
And what is being done here is I heard specific directions as to what you wanted updated. So for those provisions that are in alignment with what the House has already done in the bill, say that you already in section 3, there's no reason that section 3 needs to appear here because you're not changing it. These are instances of amendment that touch what the House proposed. So these are updates essentially to the House proposal is the way to think that you could cobble this together with the House's version to see what the full package is. And that is also to say that what is set out is the entirety of each section in which you are amending what the House did, but it does not mean that everything in that section is something that you're touching. So any of the non-highlighted figures are exactly as the House proposed. So
Yeah.
in subdivision 21, the 566K for climate control unit that's consistent with the House. The reason you see it here is because you are otherwise amending section 19.
So it's part of that section, so that's why.
Exactly.
Okay, that's,
So you can
Alright.
think of it as you would cobble together each of these things. You would take them and replace what the House did with this section. If we look at the lead-in language, that's exactly what you'll see for each of the instances of amendment. We'll scroll back up to page 3. The third instance of amendment by striking out section 9 in its entirety and inserting in lieu thereof a new section 9. So it's saying delete the House's section 9 and replace it with this new section 9.
okay, so it's by section, so then,
Just in the house is the base.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And it's kind of doubly.
but that's what we'd be doing anyway, but, okay,
It uses the House as the base, and then of course you have the oddity too, that in the second year of the biennium, the bill itself is also in the form of amendments to the prior year's capital bill.
Hmm.
So it looks sort of odd, but
okay.
saves some trees. So at the bottom of page 6, we were just talking about subdivision 22. This is the cash appropriation to DOC, the cash authorization for installation of Wi-Fi system in state correctional facilities. That had been at 3 million in the House's past version. That's been reduced by 2 million down to 1. And then on page 7, I'll explain why I have this highlighted in green in a second. This is the same line item that we will see in the Houses, to BGS for HS for replacement, women's reentry and correctional facilities. I understand that you may want to change the scope of this line item, so that is why it is in green. Currently, the text just reflects the line item as the House had it. And this is reducing by 750K. So this had been 1.25 million in the House passed version. And now you have this down to 500K. And all of those figures should net out so that you have an even.
Yes, and they will continue to net out because we gave the appropriations or cash owners.
That's great.
Okay, so that is all of your dollar sections.
And then I can confirm that I checked all of John's numbers. And they do match the spreadsheet, which sometimes is easier to track the flow of the entirety of the bill. The bill, as we've mentioned before, has lots of moving parts between cash, bond, and 2 different years, multiple sections. And John's language is trying again to just call out the couple of changes that we're doing. But I did check all the numbers and John did a good job.
Good, so far.
So far. Wow.
Rock room.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Well, we're not done.
Fortunately, I don't feel the need to prove myself. So. All right. So that finishes the.
Okay, well, we
The
did
dollars.
it. Okay, so, but,
Yes.
oh, I see. So now we're going to,
Exactly.
Okay.
So up to this point, we've been speaking about the dollar sections, and we are now switching gears into the policy sections. So the fourth instance of amendment, this is page 7, line 4, adding a new section 14A, again, just for orientation purposes. You may wonder why there's an A after this. This is being added to the set of policy sections that fall under the BGS reader assistance heading in the House passed version. So that's why it's located there. Doesn't really matter to you guys' purposes, but if you're wondering, that's why it is 14A. And what this does, very simple, for repeal of authority in the 2023 Capital Bill Act 69 for authority for BGS to sell 110 State Street. That was conditional on a number of things. If you're interested, I can pretty quickly find that act and pull it up, but this is just repealing that authority, which I understood did not have an appetite to continue to extend that authority to BGS for selling that property.
right, and I'll speak to that. Well, I'll just speak to that now. So, and I did, check in with BGS on this, so those of you who were here, I think it's just, Senator Ingalls. We gave BGS the authority to sell 110 State Street, which is the, building on the corner. It hasn't been sold, obviously. It's been 3 years, 4 years since then. I think that building is important and, that,
Why hasn't it been sold, Madam Chair? Because it's under FEMA's purview, and so we can't sell it until, or we can, but we have FEMA dollars coming in to fix the flood damage that's been.
Right.
So it hasn't been marketed because
Right.
they've been waiting for FEMA's dollars.
right? But several of our conditions have changed. State's looking at different, methods of, where employees work. So there's a lot of moving parts, and I've heard from folks that they want that building to remain, to remain in the, or the ownership of the state. And, I obviously support it because I, requested it. And we can talk about it more if you like. We can get testimony. Okay,
The fifth instance of amendment, this is something I did not draft, so I would just suggest that if you're going into detail on this, you would want to bring in my colleague, Michael Grady, but I'm happy to just hit these real quick. So these are, it's a new reader assistance heading, new set of sections related to stormwater utilities. I think there's some concern, from the chairs I understood about taking away certain powers from the municipalities. So this is amending Title 24. You can see the existing statutory language. Any municipality, this is current law, any municipality may adopt bylaws to implement stormwater management and control consistent with the program developed by the Secretary of Natural Resources under Title 10. And the new language that you see, the creation of a regional stormwater utility under statute or rules of A&R shall not prevent a muni from regulating stormwater under the subdivision, including adoption by the municipality of a bylaw establishing a municipal stormwater utility. So I think that's to be saying that the new existence of a regional stormwater utility is not at the expense of the municipal. This is a good way that I read this. But again, if you want to go into detail, I would bring in Michael Grady. You can see the remainder of this section. Municipalities shall not charge an impervious surface fee or other stormwater fee under the subdivision or under other provisions of this title on properties regulated under the required ag practices, just churches of ag waste or ag source pollution. On page 8, you have a new section added to Title 24. Municipal authority to authorize and operate stormwater utility. Again, the creation of a regional stormwater utility under statute or rules of the A&R shall not prevent a municipality from regulating stormwater under this chapter, including adoption by the municipality of a bylaw authorizing the operation of a municipal stormwater utility that establishes an assessment, an equivalent residential unit or impervious surface. So, making a similar point here, creation shall not prevent that municipality from regulating stormwater in the chapter.
right. And I'll just follow up. O'Grady did, get proposed this or, draft this at my request. My request was that the regional stormwater utility, if they do come to pass, that they do not prevent municipalities from having stormwater utilities. I talked a lot about stormwater utilities yesterday, and we can talk about it. We will talk about them in the future when we get A&R folks here. The second section was something that Attorney O'Grady did to just clarify existing language. So it doesn't add any additional authority to the municipalities. It's how I interpret it. We can talk to him about that. But it just preserves the authorities that they already have. And we'll have A&R in also. They're aware of this, and we'll have them in next week. Any questions at this time? Okay.
My favorite section next, section 20, this act takes us out of passage. That's it. That is the full piece. I got my little notes here with all the line items. So if you have questions, although I know that Scott's here and you guys love the spreadsheet. So yeah, happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Anybody have questions? All right.
Do you guys mind if I run to finance? I'm also happy to stay here.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, And so we can text you or,
Yep, and I'm
Right to you.
literally next door, so I can just jump back and forth as needed.
okay.
Thank you
Use
very
your time wisely. Thank you.
I love it. See you guys.
There's lots of things going on.
Happy Friday.
Too.
So as John went through the numbers, there isn't any more that I would necessarily add to the numbers. I would just point out that one difference in the spreadsheet I gave you yesterday is that we did reduce line 52, which was for the agricultural fairs, by $250,000 and added that to line 28, which is the statewide door controls. Other than that, the spreadsheet remains the same. I did print a new copy if you want it. You can have it. If you, other than that, you can keep yesterday's as long as you have enough. So,
I think we're okay.
Yeah.
I'd like to give BGS a chance to, speak, and also, I'm presuming that you are keeping track of what we're doing. So if you haven't, well, there are some things that that we talked about yesterday that you weren't part of. So I just want to make sure that, you know, if you have any questions about what we're doing or why we're doing it, but, I would like to hear from you. Like, about those three projects specifically. Doors. The locks. Okay, so, let's start with door controls.
So Emily Kosicki, Deputy Commissioner of Buildings and General Services for the record.
Joe Agent, Director of Design and Construction for BGS.
And so, yesterday, when we were here and discussed, the differences between the governor's recommend, the House passed version, and then the numbers, that this committee is considering, we understood that there was a desire to understand sort of the practical implications of different funding levels. And so after the House passed version, Secretary Clark sent a letter which described those impacts on a few projects, including the door controls. And in that memo, we conveyed that the funding level and that House passed version would result in delay to the project as a whole, and that we are already under contract. And so we understand that this committee is contemplating increasing the funding amount over what the House passed, but still less than the governor's recommend. And so Joe is going to speak with more detail as to what that would mean for the project and its ability to move forward.
Good. That's what we need.
For the door control, if we don't have the complete funding, it's something would have to be shaped off of the project, and this is a security project. So the problem with that is with that cut, we may not be able to do all the project. So some of that has to come into play that, to assess it. Right now, we have a construction manager actually bidding this work out. In the next couple of weeks, we'll have an actual dollar amount. What will happen if we don't get the additional funding? I will then have to work with that construction manager on what to cut and what to delay. Both of those will come at an expense later on to try and add them back into the package.
So you don't know the cost.
I don't know, I don't have the actual breakdown of the cost that would make that work until we actually get the estimate or the proposal from the construction manager. We have been shaving the original estimate with 95% construction documents complete. The construction manager came to us with over $10 million for an estimate. So we've been shaving off $2 million right off the top to try and get it to our $8 million project cost. So with this additional $1 million, we're going to be greater in the whole going forward.
And so the number, right, Joe, that you're talking about, we're going to receive as our guaranteed maximum price.
Yes.
Right, and so that's when we'll know with more specificity exactly what the total project cost is. But again, working with our estimate and what we initially got from construction manager, we've been trying to whittle it down to get the scope down and the overall cost down. So any reduction in funding at this point, from the governor's recommend, we believe, will add delay and could cause us to have to reduce scope.
Yes,
When you say reduce scope, how detrimental is that to the overall project?
I don't know yet until the bids come in and you actually see the breakdown of where that is and then where you try and shade where there's the least amount of impact, but could be added in later. But that's not always in the later part of it, may not be the least expensive in the long run.
And do you even know if that's feasible at this?
I do not.
We don't have time to assess at this point, like, and not knowing for sure what we'd be working with, if there's a reduction, we haven't gone through and said, this is what we shape, this is what we shape. It's important to know that not only from a budget perspective, there's efficiency in including everything we want to do at once, but especially in our correctional facilities, there is an operational consideration, right? We want to reduce our disruption, our work in the facilities. There are folks in there 24/7. And so that's where it's really important for us to combine everything at once. And, if we're in a position where we have to cut things out that are really critical that we're then going to have to address later, there's a disadvantage to having to do that.
Yes.
To ask it, and actually, Scott, can you tell me that, because we talked about different numbers and moving a few things around, from what the governor's request is to what the current version is, what's the difference?
The governor's recommendation is currently $750,000 higher than what the current bill has.
So we're talking about a shortfall. I'm trying to get my head around the numbers.
Yeah.
Shortfall of 750K.
The governor wanted to put 2.7, the House dropped that to just 700,000. And then we added back 1.25 million. So we're at 1950. They want 2700, a difference of 750,000.
Thank you.
Of course.
and then, that's for 2 sites, right? So what's the proportion?
2 facilities, Northeast Regional Correction Facility and the Caledonia Community Work Camp,
Yes,
1 site acreage wise.
okay,
So I just make sure that we're only in 1 location,
okay,
2 different separate complexes, work camp versus a correctional facility.
okay. So the work camp, I haven't been to that one, I need to go to that one, so,
First building you pass as you drive into the main facility, but they're interconnected. I cannot not change the door locks at the community work camp. Otherwise I have to put in the camera system. Otherwise I would have to run 2 systems.
okay, so so they are.
They are connected, yes,
Okay. So it makes sense. It wouldn't make sense to do them one at a time.
correct.
Did you?
Sorry, I'm just trying to move around here. My apologies.
No worries. Okay. So, and you're gonna have contracts in a couple weeks,
We have a contract and.
or you have but you have a contract with the construction
We have-
manager.
Correct, and then so now what happens when the bids come in, we will review the bids. If we have the funding for all of the work, then we will write a change order to that to incorporate everything that's in what's called the guaranteed maximum price.
Oh, okay,
And then they start.
all right. Okay. Any other questions?
I think I understand where you're at. If you don't have the money, you're in, look for shading or you're not gonna.
Correct.
All right, and I mean, prices of some items are just changing very much. I don't know.
They're all high right now. I could not tell you what the new
Yeah,
door lock would cost, but it's the upwards of $3,000. And that's only the lock itself, not
Mhm.
installing it into frames that have to be modified. At that facility, the existing locks are 110 volts and will go into lower voltage. So all that wiring all has changed now.
and how often do you do this?
Not very often, but I think back in the 90s, we did a door lock replacement at the Northwest State Correctional Facility. Otherwise, the other facilities have been going on this facility in Rutland in Chittenden has been going along since they were constructed.
Oh, okay. Okay, so this happens like every 20 years or something.
Yes, everything changes in the lot
Right.
world. It's not as bad as paint colors or toilets. But it is, along that line, technology changes and they get better. Our
Yeah.
older facilities like that 110-volt locks can only be worked on by an electrician. It cannot be just one of our maintenance mechanics.
Mm.
So plus it's safer. If anybody is able to get into the lock system, they don't have 110 volts there. It's only got 24 volts. And it's also used with pneumatics as opposed to just electricity. So pneumatics and both can lock on that style of lock to keep the door closed.
Okay. And then is this the last one? Or is
No.
this the last one?
We still have Rutland will be next. Then I'm not sure if it's Chittenden and St. Albans or St. Albans and Chittenden.
Okay.
So there's 3 left after this.
Okay. So we'll need to talk about this more. Boiler, please.
So the boiler replacement, this is one the governor's recommend was. Screen just went to sleep, 2 million, and then it was reduced by the House to 1 million, which the latest version of the spreadsheet, we understand this committee is maintaining that funding level. This is again a critical project for the facility. Currently, the system is not functioning as it should, and we're having to rely on other energy sources. Or will have to rely on other energy sources if we're not able to complete this work.
Right, so presently right now, we lost our smokestack. Portion of it has rusted and it is an extension off of the existing masonry chimney, but that has failed. We've had to pull that off and we have to get that reworked. So until that is done, because of the air quality standards, we need the height of the chimney to be operating the wood boilers. So we're not operating the wood boilers right now, and Department of Corrections is operating off an Emerson fuel oil. Operating our active 50 permit requires us to be operating off of wood as much as possible versus oil. So the wood chip plant that we're planning for takes the requirements of corrections to have incarcerated individuals out there taking chunk wood from out in the yard, haul it into a room, and then from the room into the boilers, which is very laborious, 24/7 throughout the winter. And they've had issues both in, being able to put an officer on the individual who's out there and then maintaining it and then operating properly. One of the reasons why our smokestack has failed is because we had a chimney fire. And
Because you did not.
we had a chimney fire. That helped in the process of
Okay.
cutting that. That is not our first. We have had many over the years. So the wood chip will take that out of play. There's not, the requirement and labor of stacking the wood in the yard, hauling the wood into the room, throwing the wood into the boiler.
So again, this for our Act 250 compliance is an important project as well as operationally and programmatically for DOC to move from what they have with the chunk wood to chips. And then again, currently we're having to rely on number two fuel. And that would continue if we're not able to leave this. Okay.
So one of the things, as I recall, we heard from the House was that you also had to deal with a couple of stormwater ponds, and that how you were going to deal with that was not fully vetted as of yet. And so it was a question of whether at the timing you would be able to move forward with this project and actually use the money. And I think I recall, Joe, when you made your presentation, that's been figured out, and so if you could just sort of speak to that.
That has been worked out. Senator, as you know, in the engineering world, once you get direction, it can turn around quickly. We have finally figured out how we can fit our drainage ponds, stormwater ponds on site and not impact our heat plant. They had to be moved, but not a lot. But now what we're doing is we're full steam ahead now to get our permit in place for our stormwater. We are hoping that that will go well and that we could actually start relocating those ponds this fall and have it in place. That way in the spring, we should be able to start our foundation work through the book.
And Joe, if I'm remembering correctly, that there's a desire to pre-order here.
Yes.
And that's why, just from a timing perspective, like, again, we do believe we have good progress on the stormwater and we think there's a good path forward there. But additionally, we want to pre-order, some of the equipment for this project. And we think that waiting, one, puts the overall timeline at risk as well as could present cost increases.
Correct. So the long lead items for this project are the boiler itself. And then also, and that's approximately 6 months from the time it's actually shop drawings have been approved and it gets ordered. So that's once it's ordered to the time it arrives, it's about 6 months. And then we also have the red iron, the structure for the building itself is another lead item that we want to do. That's what's roughly about 4 months out to have that in place.
All right, so the stormwater permit is
We are completing our design right now and
Okay.
we'll be shortly applying for a permit.
all right, so that's news.
Yes, yeah. And we have been working with A&R because of how tight that site is with ponds. We have decided where we can make it work.
Mhm.
They have seen it. They haven't provided any feedback that that's not a good idea. So I'm gonna assume that permitting will go well.
Okay. Well, that's good news. All right. Yeah.
I may, so if I'm just interpreting what you're saying to say you are ready to move forward, basically. But if you don't have the full 2 million, how does that affect your schedule? If we stay with the 1 million, I'm just trying to understand how that affects schedule and the project.
How that it would affect the schedule is the pre-ordering of the steel and the boiler. Because they're gonna have the whole foundation in place for that boiler to be set in place halfway through the steel erection process. It could be before all the steel, but I want it close enough that that boiler gets in close, because all it is, it's light as raw cast iron. It doesn't do well out in the rain. So that is part of that, is to pre-order and then also be able to, so the spring hits, to get out there and start that foundation work, so that everything is in place and ready to go to receive it. Then there's the installation of the boiler, the whole chip delivery system, trenching over the existing building for the hot water lines that circulate back and forth, and pumps and electrical, that kind of stuff. That will be kind of a little bit later in the project.
So to put it another way, it would add delay because we wouldn't be moving forward on pre-ordering those quantity items.
Okay.
If we didn't have the full.
So you can put this in writing for us, right? So that, okay.
So not playing engineer, but it's hard.
And you just admit it, it's okay.
If we, again, I'm just trying to make sure for everybody, we clearly understand is, theoretically, you could move forward, building, leaving the end wall off, so to speak, and then come back later and put the boilers in. It would mean about a year's delay in the project, though.
I don't know the exact delay, because I haven't seen the schedule yet. It's exactly when we're going to start, other than springtime.
Well, if you didn't have the money.
Right, if I have the money,
Order the boiler, so.
right, there is that, and it's to have enough to complete a portion of the project that it falls onto the next biennium when we are looking for an additional $2 million to complete it. So that's part of that problem, is I still gotta be hitting that window.
Another million beyond.
I need 2 million beyond this 1 million.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay.
but yes, it would delay if I don't get that started and get the stuff ordered. Then there very well could be a delay. So that would be a discussion with construction managers to, how do you see this play out?
And this has been delayed a little bit previous. I mean, we've been talking about a new boiler up there for quite some time, correct? I mean, I think we're on
Yes.
our second capital bill, or maybe even third capital
Oh.
bill.
I forget the actual year, we got 2.5 million, 3.5 million. There was a reallocation of $1 million. So we're sitting on roughly 2.1 million right now. Then they need these funds right here. So it's, yes, it has been in the works.
All right, so if you can send us something in writing about this schedule, that would be really helpful. Do you have it like a standard, example of how you, yeah, or just
They're all
finding projects, you know, the budget, the schedule, what it's gonna do.
High level, but I don't, you know, this is more specific now that we're taking into account the pre-ordering
Yeah,
and arrival. But I don't have that detail yet. Because we're still in the design phases, so we
Okay.
haven't had our construction manager develop.
yeah, and it's fine if you don't know the detail, but if you can just give us a summary of what you've said today.
Sure.
That would be helpful, and the details that you've said today. Okay, because things have changed since we talked about it previously. Okay,
I think the last was on the 3 acre stormwater compliance. And so. Just trying to find this on my spreadsheet. So the house pass version had reduced down to 1.1 million from the governor's recommended and minus tiny 2.6 million. I understand the committee's looking at adjusting the house version by $1 million up to 2.1. Joe. Thank you.
we were putting $1 million back.
Yes, putting $1 million back. So again, Joe, can you speak to any practical implications of the funding amount having a gap currently from the governor's recommend?
It's $500 million, basically.
Yeah.
Right. Again, what we're looking at is we're gonna have 5 projects out shortly. The Middlesex is already out for bid. The Northwest State Correctional Facility will be going out shortly. Pittsburgh facility is under review. And then that one will be going out probably, hopefully, end of the month, maybe probably into May. And those will be well underway, and then comes Newport. And because of the funding and everything else, is Newport really becomes a bigger priority over than probably the Pittsburgh site. So what I'd be looking to do is starting to move things around to make sure that I have enough money to complete Newport so that doesn't create a bigger catastrophe dollar wise and project wise for us in Newport. And then in Pittsburgh, you know, depends on what the cost comes in first in Middlesex. Will there be enough money or not? But that would be one of those, once that hits the street, whether or not this will have impact on our bidding up projects up.
So said differently, I think the house's concern was that you weren't ready, but had you do have this money, you are ready. You can change priorities and you can be ready.
Yeah, the change in priority is certainly with Newport. Now that we have a resolution up there to make that one, the third one in line, ready to go. Montpelier, we still have to do, but that one is on hold because we have to incorporate any potential work for stormwater with the whole redevelopment of FEMA and everything else. So, but Department of Labor, that one's up next also, down here in Montpelier. Relatively easy to do, again, the cost of.
So and the labor is just their building.
It's the building and the parking lots that are out there, and there's more parking lot than there is building square footage.
So we need stormwater utilities.
It already has a stormwater system, but we will want to double the size of that to capture the refuge.
Are you looking at reducing the amount of, impervious,
No, because we do need parking there.
the whole spot, the whole space?
Yes.
So, yeah, this was reflected in the secretary's letter, but overall, these are compliance requirements, not optional projects for us. And, from a timing perspective, again, like we are able to shift, prioritize where we have funding available, and any reduction in fear results in, less ability for us to meet our requirements in the near term, and then higher funding needs in future years.
And how much time do you have once you get a permit to finish it?
It's a 5-year limit. But then you're up against what comes up next year for priorities.
Sure. Sure. Well, at least, I mean, you have your, stormwater, your 3-acre areas established. I mean, they're determined unless you have, the state ends up with more property. And what have you done already? I mean, you've done quite a lot already.
We have designs complete up through Pittsford and working on right now at Northern State. And like I said, Middlesex is on the street right now.
No, but I'm saying, I mean, didn't you have projects from previous years?
No, these are the projects that are just now getting out the door.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes. So
All right.
Right, now.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I think what I heard, just clarify, the Pittsburgh, is that actually already out to bid or under contract, or is that?
that's with my program chief doing a final review before it goes out to bid.
All right, and so what you're saying is you're probably gonna change priorities from, well, that may be ready to go to Newport, because you need Newport in order to deal with the boiler piece and deal with that. So in reality, you'll have a need for probably even more funding maybe next year, to carry these through, and you'll balance whether, again, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but what I'm hearing is once you know what Newport is, you determine whether or not you even go out to bid for, Pittsburgh, given the amount of money that you have available.
Yes.
So there be potentially a project in waiting.
Well, there's definitely one that'll be that is permanent in waiting. We still have to then finish. Clear. But forgetting my other side. Just in a second.
So, and then let me just back that up. One more piece is if we stayed with the level of funding currently, which is $500,000 less. And I know you don't have the numbers yet for Pittsburgh or Newport. But would you see then having to take another project potentially off the schedule and hold for the next round of funding? Or do you think you could still get those done?
I think the ones that are going to be permitted out the door this year, I believe I'll have the money based on what we had for estimates going forward, but including Newport. But what I don't know yet is what is the bid market out there?
Sure.
And we'll find out in a couple of weeks. And that will start setting that tone. And then that,
I'm trying to understand what the potential ramifications of not having that $500,000 is. If we can still move all the projects we're ready to go with forward, or whether that takes one off and puts it on the shelf for another year. That's dry.
correct. And that sitting on the shelf for a year will increase costs.
Sure.
Labor rates will go up.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say, sometimes there are spikes in things too. So last year, you talked about in this letter, about previous year funding. Did you use all the funding that you had previous years?
We have not. It is sitting there waiting to go. I mean, there was always banking the money to get there. When this first landed lab to start putting something together, our estimate originally was over $50 million to complete this work.
For all of them?
For all
the
of them.
sites?
We are down to 10, I think, right now.
Your estimate?
Our estimate is 10.
Well,
So,
that's good.
because we know more than when it first came out and how our impacts our properties and what we can get done.
Mm-hmm.
But
Right.
the construction climate and what it brings, anything right now that is under pavement, our estimates are off because cost of asphalt is skyrocketing. So, and it's based on the
Yeah.
diesel fuel.
And we need it for
$5.
roads, so.
Yes, so
Yeah.
you know, it's not only for the vehicles, but it's also in
Right.
asphalt. So,
Right. Just one other question. Do you ever use, the pavement that counts as pervious?
we do not, we did try, but
Yeah.
we did try an
Well, there's-
experiment years ago.
Yeah, the old stuff that wasn't,
It failed. I
didn't
know
work.
AOT has an experiment going on at parking lot at exit 4. They went from pavement, I think, to concrete and trying that. But you still need equipment to clean it, to go out there, and so it's a high
Has to
labor
be
cost. Yes,
right, but then it doesn't count, on your fee either, so.
I think some of it does still, so I think that's, I
Well,
don't think they
there's some
take
that
100% of it, but.
Yeah,
But it is because of the high labor to keep it cleaned out. You know,
right. It-
just the snow, the slush falling off of a vehicle brings a lot of sand with it. And that just plugs the holes.
Yeah.
And you can't get into cleaning those until the spring of the year.
Yeah.
The other issue in cold climates is introducing water into the space. Shortens the life of.
No, it's,
Engineers coming out.
I know.
right, well,
I like the lyrics. But yes, there's, so
Are we trying to chairs?
okay. All right,
So, if I could, Madam Chair,
Sure.
just again, listening to what we heard. They're saying. We added everything back in that you were requesting, then that about $2.25 million that we would have to find somewhere else.
I'm gonna trust him.
all right, well, then this one also would be helpful if you write it down. Sure. Send it to us. Oh, thank you. Okay. And actually, do you have anything to talk, add to the, Wi-Fi conversation that we've been having?
So, we just support, DOC in their recommendation to do further analysis. Again, from a policy or technology security standpoint, you know, we're not the experts. We will be here to support, the installation, process to the extent that it touches the facility itself. But, you know, we at BGS, like, we don't have the information at this point to be able to speak to exactly what would be involved or what the cost of that would be. We just haven't been part of the conversation to know enough to put out a reasonably important estimate to any of that. So we do agree that some additional analysis, and we would work closely with our partners at ADS, DOC to get that completed to know better over the next few months.
And we need the ADS. Cause it's your challenge, it's our challenge. Okay. All right. So. Committee, do you feel that we have, I would like a little bit more information on the Wi-Fi. I do want to hear from ADS before we make a decision on that. We can put this off until next week, deciding on these items.
That's fine. I mean,
It's been a long week.
Yeah, as long as we don't have to make a determination of this finding money today.
No, we don't.
As much.
We don't.
As those folks need.
Yes, what we had to do by today was, give the, dollars for the cash to, appropriations. And that's what I did. I gave them the amount that we haven't proposed changing at all. Let's go back to that, so that,
Madam Chair, the one thing I might say is because Wi-Fi was in cash, if you wanted to reduce the cash and Wi-Fi and put it somewhere else, folks will want to be in the loop on that.
okay, but we can do, bonded dollars. If we
The bond dollars, as much as you would like.
Right, so our options are still, we still have options.
I get you. So what you're saying is if we wanted to reduce the Wi-Fi, well, is there any bonded dollars in Wi-Fi?
There's not.
So
Well, we can move other dollars. One challenge in our system is that bonded dollars and cash dollars are not used for as different types of project phases as was the intent that's implied.
yeah, okay. I agree that the testimony we just heard is they need $250,000.
yeah, that's what I was about to say. I mean,
Yeah.
we don't even need 3 million.
Right.
This, because we only need $250,000 this year, because they have
I don't even
to.
know why we can't make that decision like right now.
Since we're jumping into it, it does sound like the 750,000 that is not needed for the Wi-Fi, as we've heard from DFC, but we have heard from DFC that they can use $250,000, which is new, so. And then the 750 put back into the door controls, so we'll bring that back to the governor's recommendation. We heard about the 2 other projects that'll essentially be delayed, cost more later on, but still. Anyway,
No, that's good. And that might very well be where we end up, but I'd still like to have the information on the projects. I've been taking a lot of notes, but I'd rather have the information.
yeah,
Your
But I think
comment,
it's,
we gotta do
yeah,
more
no,
tests.
that's fine. Yeah.
if we
no,
don't have
that's
to make
good.
any more decisions today, then it makes sense to get information so everybody.
Yeah,
knows.
yeah.
Did we hear that we need to know, or they'll?
I know appropriations was going to do a straw poll today on their budget. So therefore they haven't actually passed the budget out of appropriations.
Yeah.
If there were to be a swiggle of a couple of dollars, as long as we got that to them before they wrote the bill out, I think they would be fine. So for instance, again, I'm not suggesting this policy change, I'm just saying how it mechanically would work. If today or Tuesday, we said, let's take that 1 million that we left, take 500 out, take $3 out, whatever, move it somewhere else. They would want to know that before they actually let up the final bill. But knowing that Madam Chair gave them, here's the general template. I think that was what they needed for today. And if we were to take and move the dollar around a little bit, it wouldn't be as large of a deal. As if, but if we said, let's not pay any of that $23 million in cash and leave it somewhere else, that would be a bigger issue.
Right. Good, thank you. Okay, so then, let's get the information from the BGS, I think is all that we asked. No, and we did ask for information from, DOC. So hopefully we'll get that, Tuesday. By Tuesday or Monday would be great. And then we can make a decision on Tuesday. We still have some, policy, items, stormwater, utilities, and working on getting, folks to testify on that. Is there any other testimony that folks would like to have?
I know John had highlighted in green some of the language you might want for BGS and the women's potential prisons. I don't know if you're
Okay,
content with what you have there. That's one thing, since we have BGS in the room. If you want to hear from them about any potential language, and I know you said yesterday, you may want to send John something. I don't know. if we can do that.
thank you, yeah.
I did send John,
You did? Okay.
some language that, from our perspective would work well if the committee chose to pursue, that approach for flexibility.
So
Okay.
if you've already
And so
done
we
that-
don't have that language yet.
So
I don't.
Bang on the wall.
I'm gonna,
He said it was helpful.
Okay, well, that's a good sign.
I can see if
Do
you
you want to bring John back right now?
Sure, yeah,
Let me just
we'll learn more.
pop out. Just because you have the players in the room, I think it makes sense.
Yes, that makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Don't know is that there's a common painting right now, there's actually a door and that brings. Still bit fucked up. Like, yeah.
One break?
Still on the record now.
Yeah, we're still live.
Oh, I'll say.
Okay.
Do we want to stay live?
Save my heart.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, but it's not longer safe.
So you're on the record.
Right, not letting go. Okay.
Right now, that's just hearsay.
Okay. It's you.
That's funny.
John is literally about to sit down in the witness chair next door, and they'll send him over as soon as he's done talking.
All right. So it
know how
could
long
be a
it's gonna be?
while.
They said. Shouldn't be too long, maybe 10 minutes. So.
All right. Well, let's adjourn for 10 minutes. And if he's not back by then, we might adjourn for the day. For those of you